and welcome to No Prize Podcast. I am the professor. That's Johnny. And Lucas is on special assignment. So, replaced by Skrulls. So,
don't say things like that. Oh my God.
Oh, never know. Canceled for that.
Maybe not.
All right. So we get some Marvel news, we get some comic news, we get some movie news, maybe. I don't know. We get some Disney Plus news. But let's get into it. Secret Invasion. We have episodes 3 and 4 to discuss today. Mm-hmm. Johnny, I know. I don't know. Were you on the fence about the first two issues, right? I was watching paint dry.
I was, yeah. I was on. You're absolutely right. I was a little bit on the fence with this. However, I've had time to reflect on my comments, and episode 3 had some movement. Episode 4 had a ton of movement. I'd like to think. I think I'm going to revise my opinion a little bit. This is kind of like Rogue One for the Marvel Universe. I think it's. I think it's kind of like you go in expecting one thing, get given something else, and you're like, I didn't order this. I didn't order this pizza. But then when you take a couple of bites, it's like, yeah, it's not so bad. And that's kind of where I'm at. I think the pace is still slow, but it doesn't help that there are very few sympathetic characters in the show.
That's true.
And I think it's really hard for people who aren't particularly Marvel or Universe or Fair to actually buy into the reason why Old Man Fury is so absolutely useless, practically, compared to his cinematic self. Every other character that's blipped and come back has been restored to their fighting weight, as it were. You know,
right.
Yeah, where Fury's the one that seems to be a little bit more like, kind of out of it a little bit. Some of that could have been the fact that he's, failed at finding the Skrulls planet and whatnot. But I think episode 3 started things rolling where there was a spy in the enemy camp. I will say that I was quite surprised to find out who it was.
Sure. Yeah.
They made a really good fist of having the viewer believe that character was in the bad guys camp from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's been fantastic. Episode 4, there was a couple of secrets leaked. I love the whole interaction with what's his name, Samuel Fury and
Talos.
No, Talos is great, but no, the what do you call it, Rhodey?
Oh, yeah. Rhodey.
Yeah, I love that whole interaction and the kind of like, both of them just talking as if they're best buds, but knowing they're really not best buds at all. So I thought that was interesting. And of course, there are secrets about Rhodey that I'm not going to give away.
Well, but I'm sure it's been spoiled all over.
That's it. Okay. So I absolutely thought Rhodey as the Skrull is a really good call. I think that really helps just show how far the Skrulls have infiltrated the US. Also, it hints at the reason why there's no superheroes involved. Although you'd argue if you were Rhodey, you'd call in your superhero buddies and get them cloned and whatnot. Super Skrulls have been mentioned, which is good. I think for me, the thing that makes this show watchable is Talos. I love his earnest approach to things. He's pragmatic, logical. He cares about his people. In fact, Talos changed the whole direction of the Captain Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm.
Before then, it was just kind of like we just bought into the whole reason why the Kree were doing what they were doing. But yeah, following episode 4, I'm not sure how I feel about how things are going to go without Talos.
Well, let's say you look at it, like 2 episodes left.
Yeah.
What are the, I do realize that now that they're building to the Armor Wars movie with Rhodey. So, it's going to have that character redemption arc, right? Because we're going to find out, how long has he been, a Skrull,
Scrolled.
and if you bring back Rhodey as a not Skrull, has War Machine been a Skrull the entire time? Has Rhodey been a Skrull in all the Iron Man movies?
Maybe that's why they changed between Iron Man 1 and 2.
Yeah. What if they bring him back and it's Terrence Howard? That would be hilarious, wouldn't it? It'd be like, how did we not know? They look totally different. That would be kind of funny. But I kind of thought so. The first couple of episodes, and I think I said this last time, had a very kind of feel like a spy kind of Winter Soldier-ish type like setting and how and the whole feel of it. Because I wanted to see a show that kind of went light on the superpowers and heavy on the drama and exposition, and that's what we got. And then this next 2 episodes, now I'm sitting there going, and I think I might have even said this, I watched episode 4, and they had is the big explosions and the Skrulls attacking to try to get the president, and Nick Fury and Talos show up, and they're trying to stop everything. And I'm sitting there going, I'm pretty sure Nick Fury has some Avengers still on speed dial.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm pretty sure that the Hulk is still kind of kicking around, and he's smart Hulk now. So I mean, I'm pretty sure he can come in and stop the Skrulls from doing what they're gonna do.
But then that rings up the point, because they don't mention that the Skrulls can change as soon as they've seen you. They can change into you. Is that right? Is that what they were saying?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the Skrulls as being, Skrully like they are in Marvel Universe, sure they can look at you and take you over. We saw Gravik do that in episode 2 when he turned into episode 1 when he turned into Nick Fury and shot Maria Hill, right? Yeah. So we know that's their power. The other thing that I was thinking is, if that's their ultimate spy capability is to literally be anyone at any time, why would you spend all your time looking the same? Why would like say Gaia, when she gets shot at the end of episode 3, and then it's revealed in episode 4 that she's went through the same Super Skrull process that Gravik did, so she's kind of Super Skrully herself. Why wouldn't she, like that confrontation with Gravik, like why wouldn't she just turn into someone else and like disappear?
Yeah. A couple of things. I mean, that whole Super Skrull thing, is it not is it Extremis? Was that what I'm thinking of? The Iron Man 3 stuff?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure.
That because it looks like the same effect, where they heat up from the inside.
But then when Gravik was doing Super Skrull stuff, when he had he did like the Groot power, right? Like he was shooting his arms all around, and if that's what being a Super Skrull, and it's that the only way they can show that, then I thought it would have been pretty cool as if he like took off like the Human Torch or something, and started doing some weird stuff like that.
My wife has an interesting question about the show. She watches it, and it's not her favorite show by any stretch of the imagination, but she watches it and she'll turn around to me and say to me, do other Skrulls know that there are other Skrulls? So if you've got like a Skrull in human form talking to another Skrull in human form, do they know that they're both Skrulls? Or do they not know? So I'm like, you know what? That's a really good question. They're not historically, they're not a telepathic race. So, so did he secrete some sort of unconscious pheromone type thing that allows them to see through? I don't know, but it's a really great question.
That's what I was thinking about that just the other day too. Was it was the same thing. Like,
you tried to tell me you'd be talking to my wife?
No. I got this. I got there on my own. But I just figured a Skrull knows a Skrull, right? Like, if I'm talking to you and we're both Skrulls, I know you're a Skrull just by looking at you. You know, like if I was a human, I might not know, but there's a way a Skrull can look at a Skrull and tell it's a Skrull. You know, no matter what disguise that they're in. Like if like say if it was the Fantastic Four #2 and I drove by a field of cows, I would know that there's 4 cows that are Skrulls over there because I'm a Skrull and I can tell a Skrull when I see one.
All right, so then this therefore adds yet another question to the idea. Skrulls can change into anything.
Well,
and that we've only seen them change into humans.
Yeah,
you know, there could
in
be.
fact, yeah, I remember in Marvel seeing like there was one that was like a lamp, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they can train it. They haven't done that in a long time, right? I mean, they haven't had a Skrull shapeshift into an inanimate object. They're usually a person.
Yeah, agreed.
So,
but still, it is up there within their remit.
I did want to shout out the one scene I thought was the best scene in the show so far was the scene with Nick Fury and his Skrull wife sitting across the table from each other, and they both realized that they needed to kill each other, and then they both shot, and that actually like made me go ooh. They actually fired the guns, and then that they purposely shot them over their heads. I thought that was interesting. So I thought that was the best scene of the show so far. So
yeah, the desperate need of Talos to break the window just shows you how powerful how much he believes in the idea of cohabitation, which I thought was a powerful. You're right. The firing of the guns, like, oh my god, I can't believe Fury shot. But then, you know, they kind of have that situation. And that's the reason why my wife turned around and asked the question, because she theoretically could shapeshift into somebody else and Gravik wouldn't be able to find her.
Right.
But then you kind of think if Gravik could tell who Skrulls were Skrulls, he'd go around and get rid of the Skrulls who aren't following his lead somewhat. But what do I know? What do I know? 2 to go, we'll find out, I suppose.
I do suppose that we will find out. So let's talk a little bit more about Disney Plus. There was some news that came out just the day or two ago.
Yeah. Thanks to the wonders of modern technology, my phone picked up this article from the NME magazine / website. So NME, for those that aren't aware of it, is a magazine that historically has been around the music industry for a number of decades, diversifying now to cover into aspects of other entertainment strands. And I thought this was really interesting because it kind of mirrors a little bit of what we've been saying about superhero fatigue to an extent. And according to Chris Edwards of NME, Disney is to pull back on Star Wars and Marvel content, according to the CEO Bob Iger. And as you read through it, part of it about costs, because you've got to imagine running a CGI studio or 2 CGI studios, whether it be Marvel and Star Wars, is going to be quite expensive to run. And on top of that, you've also got to think about, it says, if you read it further on, Disney CEO went on to note that an influx of new Marvel content, both on the big and small screens, had diluted focus and attention. It had not been in the television business at any significant level, and not only did they increase their movie output, but they ended up making a number of TV series. Frankly, it diluted focus and attention. And that's kind of some of the things we've been talking about in our own little kind of pods here. The fact that, Marvel movies tend to make a ton of monies, but which ones are making the money? Is it the historic ones that have got history, such as, you know, Guardians 3, for example? Yeah. Versus something brand new out of the tin, like the Eternals? No. So how popular is Secret Invasion versus WandaVision? You know, and I think I've said in the past that I've thought that the some of the shows have been hit and miss for me of Marvel. I mean, as I said, I suffered through Winter Soldier and the Falcon.
Mhm.
I have not watched all of Loki, and I have not watched Ant-Man, Quantum Mania.
Mhm.
So, and I have no real interest in watching those. I'm done. So, and this is like a comic book fan, you know what I'm saying? And what
Right.
makes it even worse, my wife, who loves the Marvel movies, has also dropped out of those series. You know,
Yeah.
she says she's like, I'm not interested in Loki. I'm not interested in watching Ant-Man. So maybe there's some truth in this. Maybe, you know, without those core characters, without the Captain Americas and the Thors and the Iron Mans, does Marvel have anything that interests anybody? It's the same argument over DC. You take Batman out of the equation, is anybody going to see the Flash movie? Hell, with Batman in, is anyone going to see
Uh,
the Flash movie?
well, I mean, yeah. I mean, you just finished your own argument. Yeah. So that is raising the question. So, like, when we see the slate of movies for next year, where we have the new Captain America movie, we have a Thunderbolts movie that's largely holdovers from Phase 4, Phase 3.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we have Captain Marvel coming up in November.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we're going to talk about Ms. Marvel in a little bit, I think, because I have something to ask you about, and I don't know if you've seen it, but our people are still burned out, right? And people are still we're all treading water, waiting for Fantastic Four and X-Men, right,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of splash down on Disney proper. But I think that they're making us wait so long. Like, what are they waiting for?
Mm-hmm.
And they're giving us these movies that I think, like you said, we're all kind of lagging. We don't care. Bring Wolverine in and make us care again. I know we have Deadpool 3 coming out in like 6 or 8 months or so, but I mean, we just got a screenshot, I think, this week of Hugh Jackman rocking the suit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you know, I think they're waiting too long. Like, they're just waiting too long to just introduce all this stuff and keep us engaged and keep us interested and give us a reason to come back to the theater. And I'm sorry, the reason to go back is not watching, Mackie and Anthony Mackie and Captain America. It's just not. It's not. I don't think that's going to do $1 billion at the box office. Do you?
Mm-hmm.
It's not screaming it to me.
I don't think it is. I think somewhere along the line, Marvel have taken, or Disney, we'll say Disney, I suppose. I think Disney have taken their audience for granted, and they've put all that effort in creating the connected universe cinematically through the Avengers cast that they think they can just do it with absolutely anyone. Because, hey, man, those comic nerds will buy anything. Actually, we won't. We won't. If you want us to make us wait for the X-Men, you tease the multiverse in the Wonder movie, and I'm sorry, it's a Wonder movie. Doctor Strange is barely in the damn thing. Then nothing else happens. You miss an opportunity with the High Evolutionary and Guardians 3 to start talking about the X-Men and talking about mutations, and that you miss that one as well. And then you're like, come on, these are the bases you should be hitting. You know, you're not going to get a whole. You're not going to score at the plate unless you hit all the bases, man. It's just not going to happen.
Yep.
And you can keep throwing. You can keep throwing these not second rate, but these big characters at us. And if we don't care about them, then generally speaking, we're going to just leave. And you know, as I mentioned before, the economy of Disney Plus versus the cinema. Nowadays, people have got huge, great big TVs, great big sound systems. It's what, $50 to go a family to see a movie at the cinema with hot dogs and all that.
Yep.
You put the movie on Disney Plus and you have to buy it for $10 or whatever as a premium on top of your thing, on top of your monthly subscription. You can invite your whole family around, make it a family event, big sound, big screen. You know, it works. And you can see, I suppose, to an extent, the comments about the CGI for Ant-Man and I'm going to mention the Flash again, both getting a little bit of grief for the bad CGI. The argument of going to the cinema is it's a better experience. But if the CGI doesn't hold up on the big screen, then where do you want to watch it?
True.
So I think, as I said before, I think the idea of the first Avengers movies was that we had had nothing like that before. And it was
Yeah.
all like, wow, this is fantastic. This is building somewhere. Now it's like, oh yeah, been there, done that.
Yeah.
And it's only the characters that we've come to love, like the Guardians cast, that are going to bring us back in. You tell me there's Guardians 3 is a story about Groot and animal welfare. I'm going to go and watch that because those are important to me. You want to tell me about Shang-Chi? Apologies, I know some people love that movie. No, go tell me. Even with the Captain Marvel cameo at the end, Black Panther, Wakanda, forgettable.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand it. And the character has to move on because of the untimely death of Chadwick. But that's the character. You said it yourself. No one's going to. How many people go to see Captain America when it's not really the Steve Rogers that they know?
Yeah.
I
think I think that's the you want to call it the fatal flaw of the MCU is everybody bought into Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man and like I'm sorry I'm not invested in a post Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man character.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Yeah.
So
same. It's a proliferation of the Iron Man technology as well. For Christ's sakes, it's in the comic books. Every character's worn Iron Man suit at least once, and it's happening in the movies. Riri Williams has got her version. You might even see a version in the Skrulls when in the TV show.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because I feel hypocritical, right? So I feel hypocritical when I say I don't really want to watch Iron Man if Robert Downey Jr. is an Iron Man, but then I'm like, yeah, whoever's in the Spider-Man suit is cool.
Yeah, well,
I feel like
it's different. It's different for that, and I see where you're coming from. But what you've got from our point of view is Spider-Man's gone through cast changes already.
Yeah.
So the Tobey Maguire fans love Toby. The Andrew Garfield, the me's, love Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
The people that love Tom Holland love Tom Holland.
Yeah.
Each one's different.
And
it's other like thing, Batman. How many people have played Batman, and all of them have had success more than others, admittedly.
I'm going to validate my own argument too, because I'm going to argue that Tony Stark had a beginning, middle, and an end story arc where he dies at the end. So I don't need to watch anything else that because it's not going to be the Tony Stark that I enjoyed in the movies. Peter Parker didn't have the same arc. They just keep recasting Peter Parker. So
exactly, and also, I mean, you bring back Iron Man, and it absolutely destroys the end of that movie. And Endgame. I think that for all the Back to the Future zaniness in the middle third of that movie, the ending is the payoff for all of it. With that, if you destroy that ending, then that's just another gung-ho action flick. But that's just my opinion.
So how does the MCU move on from post Endgame that it's had kind of failing the last couple of years here? Do they just say like let's say they reboot the Iron Man franchise just because we're talking about it? Do they recast, reboot, and then just kind of have a new Iron Man and then just say it's a different Earth, right? So we just say it's a different multiverse. So
theoretically, yeah. I mean,
but then you have to buy in again. You have to buy in on the new character. So,
and in fairness, the things that make to counter that, I suppose, the thing that makes Iron Man likable as a character, if they're consistent in every universe, then it's not multiverse, is it? You know what I mean?
It's very true.
There's a reason why we like Spider-Man is because it's every version's Peter Parker. Every version of Spider-Man, whether it be Tobey, whether it be Andrew, whether it be Tom, have Peter Parker problems. You know, that's the constant fact. Yeah, it's not a multiverse; it's the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if you're watching Across the Spider-Verse, Miles Morales has Peter Parker problems.
Yeah, exactly. That causes the same. If you then have Tony Stark doing the same thing in every universe, then it's like, could you? I mean, theoretically, you could build up the alcoholism. That would probably be a way to go.
Yeah.
to change that up a little bit. You could lead into an Armor War type thing.
Well, we'll see that with Don Cheadle.
Well,
Right.
we'll see what happens, because I mean, you got to think to yourself, could there go Secret Wars? Somebody comes in and takes the heroes from their timelines, messes with them. I mean, Loki, the TV show, he's pulled out from Endgame, isn't he? Oops, out. And then he goes and has his adventures. At some point, he has to get popped back in to do all the other stuff. So it's like, because when he pops out of Avengers, that's actually in the past. He hasn't yet done the things he's done in Thor 2,
Yeah.
3,
Well,
and whatever. So you got to think.
Mixing up the timeline.
So yeah. So at that point, or do you just wash your hands and say, "Look, fair enough."
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do in MCU. That's what we do in the comics, right?
Did the Black Widow movie work with the idea that it's a story about her past rather than a continuation of her story? I don't think it necessarily did, because there's no real.
Well,
on that.
I enjoyed the Black Widow movie, but yeah, you're right. I mean, there's no stakes, right? Because where she ends up.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's kind of like, I guess that's kind of like watching Rogue One. So
yeah.
But
Rogue One's
I still
journey.
enjoyed Rogue One.
Yeah, Rogue One's journey is it's intense, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Before we jump into comics, I want to just kind of segue into this. Did you read? And I just came out yesterday. It's all over Twitter, so I don't know if you saw it. Iman Vellani is now going to be writing the relaunched Ms. Marvel comic book called Ms. Marvel New Mutant.
Well, I hadn't heard the names associated with this. Mm-hmm. What I have seen is Cyclops intimating that she will be going through the resurrection process and as a mutant. That's what I've seen. I haven't seen anything around the whole how she comes back, but
the big thing, so nobody's surprised she's coming back. We all knew she was going to come back, and I think we even might have speculated that they were going to bring her back as a mutant. But I think the real big news is Iman Vellani, who plays Ms. Marvel in the TV series and in the new Marvel movie coming out in November, is going to be writing this new version of the character.
Right. Yes. Okay. So yet again, and I've said this on TDC about a number of actors who take on the person who writes for Dreamer. Michael Dorn is currently writing an action a Steel comic book, because his logic is he's the voice of Steel in the cartoon show, so therefore he should write. The guy that plays the Riddler in the Batman movie has a Riddler book out.
Yeah.
Right. I am absolutely, unless this screams at its core, this screams absolute ego over content. Why would you turn away skilled writers in order to accommodate the whims of an actress? It's not as if writers turn around and say, "Hey, I can do better than you." Also, the current Hollywood strike, how's that going to affect it? Because if you're part of Hollywood and you're striking, that means you can't do it. Sorry, that's it.
That's
wait
interesting.
for the book to come out. Does that mean the book has to wait until the strike's over? How does it work?
Well,
it was, what's his name? Cillian Murphy walked out of the premiere
of his own movie, right? The whole cast,
because there's a holidays. The Hollywood strike was on. Now you can't turn around and say to me, the strike, you're not actually working when you go to a premiere. It's like, hey, I'm just there chilling out, whatever. You're not getting paid for that. You're getting paid to be on the screen.
Yeah,
but as soon as that strike was announced, out they went.
Yeah.
Now, if that's what it is, then fair enough. You can't do one and the other. Was the show that much that well loved that it warrants somebody like the actress coming on and saying, "Hey, I can write this"? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, when I read that, I read that twice because I was like, they really, she's gonna, and she's, it says right, she's never written anything before. I read an interview with her. She's like, I've never read anything before, but they gave me excellent tools. I'm like, she's got a co-writer, so she's
Yeah.
co-writing it with, I think one of the writers from the TV show.
I've got it
So
here. So the new 4-issue series will be co-written by Villani and Sabia Posada with art from Carlos Gomez and Adam Gorman. Now, for me, when you look at the creators that have been involved in, I mean, G. Willow Wilson is an absolute fantastic writer. Whether you agree with the whole force and diversity in the comic books or not, stick a pin in that for 2 seconds, because G. Willow Wilson is a writer. She is absolutely fantastic, and I see her name on stuff. I'm going to check it out. Not always my cup of tea, granted, but the writing, the craft of writing, no, it's like it's bonkers. It's like saying it's essentially turning around and saying, I'm trying to think of a writer that I really like at the minute. Oh, right. It's like saying, tell you what, we'll kick Kelly Thompson off Captain Marvel and we'll get Brie Larson to write it.
oh yeah, that's blasphemy.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, let's kick whoever's writing Wolverine off and put Hugh Jackman in.
Well, I think it's kind of interesting, just from the whole Ms. Marvel standpoint, as Ms. Marvel as a character in the comic book writes fan fiction about Captain Marvel, and now we have the actress writing her own version of fan fiction about, so from that I think it's kind of like art imitating life imitating art, right? But
do you know what infuriates about the whole thing is these actors who turn around and come out and will say like things like, I'm writing this book because I have a great take on the character and I understand what the character's motivations are and yada 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 yada. Actually, you're an actor. Just want to say that out there. You read what is written for you. You act the way you get directed to act. You have no massive insight into the character that you play other than all the other elements that come in to make your performance, like the script, like the editor, like the director, like the producer, like the special effects. All of those things come together to give you the whole. Am I being unfair? You know what? I might be a little bit. But this whole ego trip of actors turning around and saying, because I get paid to play a part, I therefore know more about the part than the character, than the people who've been writing it for the last 25 years or so.
All right. So let's.
You set me up there. Damn you.
Sorry. All right. Let's take a quick break and then we'll come in and we'll talk about a few comics.
Cool.
Maybe a couple. Maybe just one. I don't know. What, two?
Yeah, we'll do two maybe.
All right. Let's see what Robert Kirkman's selling this week.
I'm Robert Kirkman, and I couldn't be more thrilled to see you shopping at Comic Crusaders. If you love great comics, you're going to want Void Rivals Issue 1 available now. Void Rivals launches the Energon universe featuring Transformers, G.I. Joe, and all new characters interacting in a new shared universe. You're going to love the surprises we've got planned for all your favorites in these new series from Skybound and Hasbro. Thank you for checking out Void Rivals, and make sure you come back here to get your new comics every week.
Oh.
I was going to say, does that never end? On the way back from Ibiza this week, my wife watched the Transformers Beast Mode, Beast Masters, whatever it is movie. What?
And?
She enjoyed it. She was like, yeah, it was a bit cheese on toast in places, but there's a twist at the end.
Oh,
That has something to do with Void Rivals. Just
oh,
saying.
what is Robert Kirkman show up?
No,
No.
I like his advert. I couldn't be more thrilled. Can you tell your face, please, Mr. Kirkman? Thanks. No, so in the movie, a kid gets a suit. It's a Transformer suit and whatever. He helps save everyone and blah blah blah. Well, yeah, he gets a job working at a lab. He goes to the lab, it opens up. It's like, hey, you're part of a new project now, and the project name comes up, Joe. So
There
in
you
the
go.
movies, the Lincoln transforms to GI Joe.
Well, hey, Hasbro living its best life. So,
Cool.
all right, so let's talk about a couple of comics. Do you want to
Which
jump
one?
into? Let's do your pick.
Oh, my pick.
Yeah,
My pick.
Yes.
We never do my pick first.
Yeah, but Lucas isn't here today, so let's do
All
your
right.
pick first.
Hang fire then, because I didn't think we were going there, but never mind.
Oh, okay. Do you want
No,
to do
no, it's fine. I've got
do
it.
my-
I've got it. I just need a little bit of prep time. I'm sorry. I thought I was prepared. I am not prepared. Open with, because we have no Lucas, so therefore, where's that? Come on.
That's all right. We get time because there's no 2-minute warning today because Lucas isn't here. So
Right, here we go. So my pick was the book that I've actually been enjoying the most recently, Rogue Gambit, and this is the final issue of 5-issue run. Here's the book. There you go. Have a look at that whilst we're doing this. This is written by Stephanie Phillips. Carlo Gomez, who was just mentioned, is on art. David Muriel and Proto Bunkers for Cifuentes Sujo. Look at me getting all Spanish. Is on colors, and VC's Ariana Meyer is on letters. I have to say that I thought this book was quite a fun read. I've enjoyed the whole little series, to be honest. I think we now can accept that Rogue and Gambit are the ex-couple.
yeah,
Especially as Jean and Scott have broke up, and Scott's been turned down by Emma Frost recently. I mean, how hard is life? I've been dumped by a beautiful redhead, and a beautiful blonde doesn't want me either. Okay.
he cannot have his cake and
Yeah.
eat it.
Sucks to be you, psych. Sucks to be you. So I like Stephanie Phillips. I like her writing generally. I came across her on the Dark Horse book, where she does kind of like historical books, but with like a fictional twist in them, which is interesting. She then moved over to DC. She worked on Harley. I haven't read a lot of her Harley stuff because I don't like Harley. Yes, I know that's sacrilege. I must be the only white, straight male in the world that doesn't like Harley Quinn. Yeah, that's fine. But Phillips has written loads of stuff here, there, and everywhere. So I really like this book. The art looks great. I know we don't normally look at the book, but I think Rogue comes across really well in this book. Great little pastiche of their relationship.
Yes.
Early doors. I think that works well. It is this comes up in where I looked at Immortal X-Men. This is the Rogue costume that everyone loves. Cyclops is in the Cyclops costume that everyone loves, and that makes me wonder why all the other mutants aren't in their classic looks. But the thing that there is an element of traction to this book, a relevance because of the whole what's going on with Manifold. This is a key part of the Hellfire Gala this year. So if you're into what's going on with over there in X World and the Hellfire Gala, this run has to be a must. Well, is it a must read? I'll get back to that in a second. It does have its connections, the whole Destiny thing and Rogue thing. Normally, this book I don't think casts any stones or anything. I think it's just like it would in any given year. This would be a throwaway book. A bit like, to an extent, the book you've chosen. For me, it's a sad state of Marvel where this book is making it as like, wow, we must read this book.
Yeah.
No disrespect to the creators, but it has been a fun ride.
Well, the reason I like this book is because it's probably the most accessible of any of the X-Men books at the moment,
That's
right?
for
So
sure.
you could read it. You can read it and just say, okay, yeah, so it's Rogue and Gambit doing their thing.
Yeah.
Where I mean, I feel like I have to take a master class if I just pick up an issue of X-Men or Immortal X-Men or X-Men Red
Well,
or X-Force or yeah, I'm just like I just don't
I'm not.
understand a lot of what's going on.
We're probably not going to talk about it, but I read Immortal X-Men because that was going to be Lucas's choice. And I didn't. This you're absolutely right. This I don't know why anyone's buying Immortal X-Men, at least not this issue, because you either follow what's going on, and so you know what they're talking about, or the exposition tells you everything that's going on, so you don't need to know everything. So it's a bit of a lame duck book for me, because if you read it, and we don't read X-Men every time it comes out, but reading that book, I know enough that it's kind of joining the dots. And I'm like, well, if I've been reading the series, I already know this is happening. Why are you telling? Why am I spending $5 on a book that's telling me exactly what I already know? And I think that's the problem with the X world at the minute. It's just too heavy of its own continuity,
Yeah,
which makes this book, as you say, absolutely accessible and fun because it is characters doing what characters do.
yep, yeah. I read Immortal X-Men too, and the problem with that book really was it's like it's too heavy in exposition for its own good with so much so many characters and so many political motivations, and they spend the whole issue talking about stuff instead of doing stuff. And there's no action. It's like talking heads for days. So it's not enjoyable.
And doesn't Celine come across like a pantomime villain? You know, she's like the character that goes whoa ha 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 at the end of everything. You know, it's like
yeah, exactly.
Like oh my god, come on.
But I'm sitting there going, how many good X-Men villains are left? I mean, they're all on the they're all around the table. They're all like in power.
So and this is, I mean, the Celine thing. That's my point. Celine has a kick-ass costume normally, and yet somewhere along the line they've put her in this. I'm like, really? How? I mean, the only decent thing about Immortal X-Men is what happens to what's his name, Doug, which is going to have ramifications down the line. But I don't know.
Oh, it's true.
But no, this book, I think 5-issue. It's a good little run, fun, interesting.
Yeah. And it gets mutants interacting with non-mutants, which and when you in the X-Men you don't get that, but here you have the Power Broker as the villain, who's not a mutant, with the Absorbing Man and Electro and Juggernaut. But to me, this is a kind of a fun read, and to bring in Manifold, who is kind of like one of those D-list superheroes that you don't really think about, but he's actually been sneaky in like a lot of stuff. He's in a couple of other X-Men books, and he's been in Black Panther, and he's kind of around, and you're like, this guy's getting some traction. So
a couple of things art-wise before we move on. Rogue looks gorgeous all the way through. There's no ifs, no buts. She is absolutely gorgeous. Hands down, well done for Carlos Gomez for that. Interesting how you're going to curb that curviness when it comes to doing Miss Marvel, who was flat from Pancake City, whatever. I will say this, though. When did Irene get so foxy? I've said this before. She's got it going on.
I think when they resurrected her, they resurrected a younger version of her. So she's like, when she takes the mask off, she's not an old lady anymore. She's a young chick.
And of course, she knew I was going to say that. Just saying. But no, I think 5 issues. If you've missed the 5 issues, I'm sure they'll be in comic book shops, all 5 of them. If not, it's Marvel.
Yeah, wait for the trade.
Wait for the trade.
Yeah. All right. Speaking about waiting for the trade, let's talk about my pick.
It seems like we're only last week we were talking about a Warlock book, but here we go.
Yeah, did we review issue 3?
I don't know if we did. I think we did. Did we not do a Warlock book on All Timers?
We may have. Oh yeah, we did.
Cool.
Okay, so this one is my throwback book of the week, I guess, because
There's a couple of them.
Marvel, Marvel likes doing this now. The last couple of years, they've been coming out putting I want to say old creators, but creators from a certain time, and bringing them back to write characters of a certain time. So this is called Warlock Rebirth. This is issue 4, so we're smack dab in the middle of this, and it's written.
Does it end next month?
It ends with issue 5. Yes, yes. Everything is a 5 issue anymore, unless noted. Written by Ron Mars, pencils by Ron Lim, inks by Don Ho.
Sorry,
not the tiny bubble singer, but the inker. Colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr. Letters by VC's Joe Sabino. And if you don't like it, blame Noah Sharma and Kaka Gorovich and Darren Shan, the editors with the too many chefs spoil the soup. Is that how that works?
Spoils the broth, yeah. Too many chefs spoil the
broth. So this is a pretty straightforward story where the High Evolutionary has recreated. If you remember, Adam Warlock used to go by him, and then later the female version of Adam Warlock was called her, and then later on was called she, right? And then later on, even after that, was called Kismet or something
called
like
them, because it's the world that we live in nowadays.
Of course, she had every pronoun in the book, and now she's called Eve, as in Eve Warlock, as opposed to Adam Warlock, which is probably the most no-brainer to call this character. So
I can't believe it took someone this long to come up with. Should we call a female Adam Eve?
Right. And so the whole premise of this book is the soul gem, right? So it is we're back with the MacGuffins with the Infinity Stones. The soul gem rears its ugly head again, and Eve Warlock is now wearing the soul gem and gets in a fight with Adam Warlock over it. Basically, they end up in the soul world because Adam's been there before, so he can apparently travel there without a problem, and so can Gamora and Pip with the help of Doctor Strange. So they have a big battle in Soul World, which ends with Adam defeating Eve, taking the soul gem, and as soon as he takes the soul gem, the High Evolutionary shows up, because of course that's what he does. This was a fight issue really from beginning to end. The artwork by Lim. I used to absolutely love Ron Lim's art. I loved it on Silver Surfer. I loved it on Infinity Gauntlet. Here, I think inker Don Ho does not do him any favors because he doesn't look as good as he used to. The colors are still good. But it looks, the artwork looks a little too sharp, angular for me. He's not as rounded or polished as he used to be.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this was a rush job or what. But some of the characters don't, they look a bit angular for my taste, especially when I went in and I was like, ooh, Ron Lim.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, Ron Lim. Fond memories of what used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point, I thought Mark Bagley was on this book. It was that angular. So, well.
Oh well.
But it's funny.
It does. It looks like Ron Lim. It just doesn't look like the Ron Lim I'm used to.
So it's cosmic books. So we've just talked about Immortal X-Men. You have to know what's going on, and if you don't, it actually helps you because it tells you everything anyway. This is the opposite. You have to know your Adam Warlock history, and there's no ifs, no buts, no coconuts. Apart from the whole, you stood up to this person, you stood up to Thanos, and he reminds them that he actually got killed by Thanos. Yeah. So that wasn't a good point to make. it's funny because I've written in my notes, what was once old is now new again, is the svelte version of Jim Starlin. Ron Mars continues to bring back Warlock. And that's pretty much what happens.
Well, Ron Mars was always kind of like Starlin's handpicked successor to all of his stuff.
It's like the trimmed down version of Jim Starlin.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's like it's like saying Spain is baby Mexico.
But where Starlin would just fill your pages with words.
Yeah.
Ron Mars is more of a minimalist, where he lets the art do the talking for him in the most part. So.
Which I suppose works in an action book like this one, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I enjoyed it for what it was. I know enough cosmic stuff because cosmic Marvel's not my bag. I knew enough about what was going on to understand what was going on. I don't understand why there was a Spider-Man Daredevil cameo at the start, other than to fill pages.
Yeah.
The conversation about is Kingpin my guy or your guy was a little bit like, really? This is what I bought. But
it's like, are they going to come back to that? No.
No. It's and I've noticed a couple of things. I mean, the bizarro version of Spider-Man's in this week's Amazing Spider-Man for no other reason than Ed McGuinness likes drawing it, and he might turn up later in. And so Amazing Spider-Man continues to be a drop that book because it's so cold for me. What I was going to say about this book is, again, it's kind of like the Rogue book to an extent, is that Marvel is so bad with current stuff, they have to go back and do old stuff to get people to buy it.
I think they're trying to hang on to the old readers like myself.
Well, that works for Warlock, because but are you actually going to go back and read the days up to the Days of Future Past? Because I'm damn sure that I'm not going to go back.
I did read it, but
is it terrible?
It's
it looks terrible.
It's not great.
I mean, why? I don't need to know the days up to Days of Future Past. I don't need to know why Obi-Wan and Anakin have a fight. I just know that they do. I don't need to see it. Thanks very much. So, it's like this whole symbiote Spider-Man book that came out. I love Peter David writing Spider-Man. Do I love that book? No, because it's of its time, which is an old timers thing. Move on. Where us older readers are adapting to what you're putting out there. But these sort of books, I don't know. You said it yourself. You see Ron Lim on there, and you think, "Whoa, this is gonna be Ron Lim," and then you look at it, you're like, It's like the Avengers one with Alan Davis. We love Alan Davis, but we picked that book up. We're like, "What is this?" So if you're going to promise one thing, deliver one thing. But as a whole, generally speaking, I thought this book was all right. I thought it was, if I was into Warlock and the whole cosmic stuff, I'd have probably got into it more than I did.
I think this
suffers. It was all right for what it was.
Yeah. I mean, it suffers because I think Warlock's a boring character, but to the reason that I think Starlin even thinks Warlock's a boring character because he's surrounded him with Pip and Gamora. But we'll see. We'll see how it wraps up. I like the High Evolutionary as a villain, but I always kind of think they chump him out where he should probably be just more of like a he's kind of more of like a Doctor Doom type character. But
I would like to see him. I would like to see the High Evolutionary be some sort of like a bookend character. You know what I'm saying? Sort of start a nefarious plot, then it interweave through whatever, and then have the conclusion. I always feel that he's always like, we're in a bit of a pickle now. We need to do something. What should we do? Let's throw him in there. And you're like, what? It happened with the early doors Spider-Woman series.
Yeah.
And you're thinking to yourself, why do I have to put up with the High Evolutionary? Because Carlo Pacheco was trying to tie up all the different versions and variants of Spider-Woman to make a cohesive history. So you've got to include the High Evolutionary at that point. But to the point, do you really need to? Or do you just go with the flow? Because Dennis Hopeless wasn't doing that. He was just writing Jessica Drew. So I think these characters are sometimes like Doom, like Evolutionary, like the Beyonder. I think they're a little bit too big for their own books sometimes. I think if you're going to use them, you should use them on a grand scale, not as a throwaway in a 5-issue miniseries.
Well, I mean, when they like 50 years ago, they were using High Evolutionary, and he created a counter Earth, you know, where Warlock was running around on a different Earth. I'm like, well, you know, if he's creating Earths, then why is he fighting the Avengers?
Yeah, crazy.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this up. There's no 2-minute warning, no Lucas today, so
done in an hour.
Woo! All right, so 2 weeks from now, we'll be talking about the end of Secret Invasion and whether or not it was worth watching the entire time.
I hope that's an affirmative. I'm not gonna lie.
And then we'll be talking about that. I'll be at the end of July.
That much closer, football, baby.
Yeah. All right, so be with us 2 weeks, and we will see you then. Until then,
adios.
Adios.